Hey, welcome back. I'm Wayne. Today we have so much to talk about. We'll be taking a look at Elisa Bartoli from Roma's Femminile team, as well as a Spinazzola interview, what the Roma players are up to in the World Cup, how they're doing, as well as, say it, the elephant in the room, what's going on with Juventus.
If you like my video, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Thanks.
Okay, lots of exciting stuff going on. A World Cup match just about every single day, a few per day. It's hard to keep track almost, but I've been doing my part trying to keep up. As I've mentioned an episode or two ago, that I haven't been able to see the World Cup in years. This has been really, really exciting. I'm buying into it. I'm a school teacher, and I can see how much that the students are into it. And it's totally different. I'm not sure if it's because it's the winter and just the availability that there are of streaming and all stuff like that. But it just seems to be all encompassing. And remember, I live in the United States. Football is not the first sport by any means in this country, but definitely growing. And shout out to the USA, who now qualifies and will face the Netherlands. I'm excited about this one. I think the USA has a chance. Maybe you're laughing at your phone or your computer screen right now or your TV, but I really do think that they have a fighting chance. I want to say it's about a third. I give them a third of a chance of winning because I see a team which is organized in the back. But on top of that, they have a really strong midfield, as do the Netherlands. But the Netherlands have not been playing to their strengths, I don't think. They don't look super organized. It's not fluid football. It's just not as good as what they can do. So I'll be cheering on my USA for that match for sure. I really wanted to start this episode off by talking about Roma Femminile. They've been doing so good. And one thing I want to do, I think, in continuation of this YouTube, is to keep talking about them, not just because they're doing good, but because they deserve, equal footing and at least to be discussed here because they're an important piece of this club and one that is very much growing. Right now, they're in first place in Femminile Serie A, and they can go on and win their first Scudetto. They are 6 points clear of second place Juventus, and they're only 10 matches in. So it's looking pretty good. Their captain is Elisa Bartoli. She is no stranger to Italian football. She's been, a bit around the block. She comes over from Fiorentina. Before that, she was with Torres from Sardinia. She won a Scudetto there, as well as 2 Supercoppa trophies before transferring to Fiorentina, where she also had success before deciding to return to her home, her native home, which is Rome, of course, where she was named the captain. When this club started and this new sector began, one of their goals was to win silverware within the first 4 years. And guess what? They did it. They did it last year, 2021, with the Coppa Italia win over Milan that was on penalties. So, big credit to her. She's also playing for the national team. I believe she's 31 years old and typically plays as a left or right back. So, very cool stuff there. But what about what's going on with Juventus? I want to start off and say that no news site had anticipated this happening. There was no suggestion on La Gazzetta dello Sport. Nowhere could have seen this coming. Like The Guardian said it very good. And I'm going to get to the interview that they had here, or the write-up that they had. It was like a lightning bolt coming out of a clear sky. Totally. So who's been indicted? What's going on? It's a full investigation, which involves Pavel Nedved, Andrea Agnelli, the club president, as well as Paratici, the sporting director, who is now at Tottenham. According to GDS, Gazzetta dello Sport, ANSA, and more, the authorities in Torino have prepared an arrest warrant for these people. This is stemming from an investigation that has been going on for a long time. Juventus have released an official statement on their website pointing out that there has been no fraud. John Elkann has mentioned as of today that he will come out and clear the air. And I'm going to get to this passage from The Guardian now. So as I take my eyes a little bit off the screen, just bear with me. Last year, a major investigation was opened into Juve's accounting practices and financial reporting. In October 21, Covisoc, which is Italian football's industry watchdog, raised concerns about what is perceived as unrealistic player valuations being used to achieve plusvalenza. You're no stranger with Italian football. You know what plusvalenza is: getting a player in for cheap and selling him for much more. A list of 62 transfers was passed to the Domestic Football Federation, the FIGC, 42 of which involved Juve. Many were exchange deals, such as the one that took Pjanic to Barcelona in a swap for Arthur Melo. at first prices at list prices alleges to have been artificially inflated. This was something which was talked and discussed very much so on social media. Where were these teams getting these valuations for? How could it be that Pjanic was valued somewhere, above 42 million, and Sturaro, if we remember him being sold to Genoa, that these numbers were just so far off of their expected value of their comp? So I worked in real estate for years, and one thing, when you look at a property and you assess it, you run a comp, a comparison, a comparable property, and that's how you determine the value of a property, or in this case, a player. So when you look at like for like, you can tell, he's got this much on his contract left. He gives out this much statistically, his output, and therefore his age and a couple other intrinsic values go into it, and you can say that this player is worth that. So when you see somebody like Pjanic being valued at 42 million or whatever it was even above that, something's wrong, right? I'm going to continue here. In April, Juventus and 10 other clubs were cleared of wrongdoing by the FIGC's disciplinary commission, who cited the difficulty of assigning objective values to footballers. It's just what I was talking about, but they should be able to assign a value based upon comps. They have to have a better way in the future of handling that. In the meantime, however, a parallel investigation had been opened by the public prosecutor's office in Torino, focusing on Juve's published accounts for the years 2019, 2020, and 2021. The Prisma investigation deployed wiretaps to intercept communications between the decision makers at the club. Last November, a warrant was obtained for financial police to search Juve's training facilities as well as offices in Torino and Milan, seizing relevant documents. 16 people were placed under scrutiny, including Agnelli, his vice pres, who until this previous Monday, Pavel Nedved, and the club's former CFO, chief football officer, Paratici, who is now, of course, as I mentioned, at Tottenham. Prosecutors concluded their inquiries last month, filing accusations of false accounting, market manipulation, and false financial statements. Why can't you do this? Why is this a big deal? Because Juventus is a publicly traded company. You have to have full transparency with your shareholders, or else you get in a lot of trouble. You get in a lot more trouble if you were a private company. But once you go on that stock exchange, you do not want to head down this road. Beyond the plus valenze, Juve were alleged to have made misleading claims about an agreement by players to waive part of their salaries during the pandemic. In March 2020, the club released a statement reporting a pay cut equivalent to 4 months' wages, saving about 90 million euros. Instead, players are said to have given up 1 month's salary. La Liga has come after Juventus with this, issuing a statement of their own yesterday, demanding immediate sporting sanctions against Juventus. This had already lodged an official complaint against the club with UEFA in April, citing the Prisma investigation. They want to protect their clubs, La Liga here, and they do not want tampering of any kind, because this, of course, could have influenced matches that they've played with Spanish clubs. Juve has come into a series of Spanish clubs in the past 5 years that they have played against. I don't know how this one's going to end. I don't know if Juve, they're not going to get relegated. I don't know if there's going to be a points ban, some type of financial, tax against them, something like that. If I had to guess, the way that this is going to end up is probably like a year transfer ban, is what I'm just feeling it. So Milinkovic-Savic, who I had a very strong feeling would be joining the Bianconeri, I don't know if he'll be joining now. I'm going to imagine he's going to start to get cold feet. What happens with a player like Vlahovic, a big player, super talented, starting his career more or less, in the next 2 years, he'll be coming into his prime. Does he want to stay at a club which is going through with these issues? I'm not so sure, especially when I read reports about, Manchester United linked with Vlahovic. Can a player who's in his situation, would it be pragmatic, smart of them to refuse a move to an EPL side, even if they were, let's say, the top 8, if you compare them, right? So does that become in his best interest? Does he move on? What does Pogba do? What happens to all these players? Are they going to be implicated, or their agents in some way? I don't think it'll go that far, but I do think you will see probably a transfer ban at the end of all this. That's just the feeling I get. They're not going to be put in B. That would very much hurt the TV rights deals for Italian football going into the future. So it's not going to have a great ending, but I don't think it's going to be as catastrophic as the newspapers and social media people and pundits might suggest. Moving on to Roma players in the World Cup. Argentina advanced, but we haven't seen our boy Dybala get into the starting lineup. The manager has cited this as being a tactical choice. I, for one, am pretty happy because I don't want Dybala playing in games every 3 days. I want him to have conserved his energy, his knees as much as we can. But going into the next round, I would like to see him. I'd like to see him get on the ball, especially if Argentina go and win this thing. I want to see them in there. For the first goal here, Molina put in a driven cross on the ground where Alexis McAllister put a slow roller past Chesney. This was the most recent game I'm talking about, of course, right now against Poland. And from the very onset, I just made up a line. From the onset of this match, Argentina were totally in control. They deserved to win. There's no debate about that. Poland actually does get through because Mexico, based upon their game and not being able to beat Argentina, not pulling it, just enough. They couldn't get the job done. Mexico do not qualify for the next round, and it goes to Poland. What means for Poland is that, or for us, we could see Zalewski get a little bit more time out there, get a little bit more World Cup experience, which is very cool. But this McAllister guy, he's super interesting. Like, what a player. On top of him, Rodrigo De Paul, I thought has had a very good, not against Mexico. He was criticized a lot, but he also was on the ball and always trying to get it, always trying to advance it beyond or between the lines, which is why I love him so much. He's comfortable playing in the middle. At times for Udinese, he played it as a number 10 right behind the striker, more as a support forward. But we see with Argentina, he's playing a little bit deeper. Julian Alvarez then scored a great goal to make this 2-0 for Argentina. He works himself very well inside the box. What a shot with his right foot. Tremendous purchase by Manchester City for him. That's I know he plays second fiddle to Haaland. Anybody would in the way that it's going for him right now. He's about to shatter the EPL record. But does a player like this want to stay at City? Julian Alvarez, would you like to play for Roma? Sending an official offer to you right now. Just have your people get in touch with my people. Anyway, Argentina will now face Australia on December 3rd at 2 p.m. Australia won after Matthew Leckie of Melbourne City FC scored a nice solo effort, super agile player there, which is surprising because he's 31 years old. Get this now. Carlos McAllister's only 2 official matches for Argentina were against Australia in the 94 World Cup qualification playoff. That is the father of Alexis McAllister. Portugal have advanced as well. I don't think Rui Patricio is going to be getting in on net. But Leao, what about that? How is he not starting? Leao last season was the most complete Portuguese player when you add up goals and assists. None other were better than him, more prolific. There's 2 strikers on Portugal who scored more goals. But when it comes to actual creating, assists and goals, it's Leao. He has to be the starter for me for Portugal. He is a guy who can turn a game on its head. He can get a moment of magic out of nowhere. I guess the argument on the other side is that the manager is finding equilibrium with the players he has right now, and Portugal has been doing pretty well. So it's hard to argue with wins. You don't want to analyze the wins too much, as is often said with football and in sports in general. On top of that, Matias Vinha's his Uruguay sits at the bottom of the table. They face Ghana on Friday at 10 a.m. And if South Korea slip against Portugal, which I do expect them to do, then there's still a way for Uruguay to advance. That's a bit of an aging side, though. Them still getting Cavani in there. Godin is still starting for them. His career is pretty much over. On other news, the tour in Japan has come to a close. Yokohama Marinos almost beat Roma, but in the last few minutes, Roma salvage a point. It's a friendly, but they salvage a draw. 2 late goals from Ibanez in the 84th and Shomorodov in the 93rd. Roma conclude their tour. I saw Mourinho speaking. One of the fans through Socios, the fan token website they had, or company, had asked him, what do you like most about Japan? And he says, well, I've been here twice. I was here with Porto in 94, and then I came back, and now I'm here again. And he says, actually, like, one of my favorite things is the Wagyu beef. So, and he's talking about, Mourinho was discussing how he grew up in a fishing village in Portugal, or fishing town, and to the contrary, he was actually more of a beef guy. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Out there, Spinazzola also gave an interview, and somebody asked him, I'm sure if this was a journalist or a fan, about any advice, because he was somebody who plays on the left and was right-footed. And he said, I think it's a double weapon to be good with both feet. If you know how to use your left too, you can go both ways. A player can have more ways to make a play. Then he's asked, what is your life advice? And he says, in life, you need balance to do well. Who's the strongest striker you've met? Spinazzola replies, Douglas Costa. What's your favorite Japanese dish? My favorite is sushi, because we're used to it in Italy. Then he said, I like Kobe beef. About Japanese football. He says, Japanese football reflects how you are in life, tidy and disciplined. We saw it against Germany. You can do great things. Cool. Nice one from Spinazzola. Otherwise, life has been pretty good. I'm getting excited for Christmas. Just decorated the outside of my house. Trying to keep my Vespa fresh. Trying to start it every now and then. But it's getting cold, and I can feel it in the engine. It's been dying out. I'm not sure if that's cold, or if I bought this bike like secondhand, maybe even third hand. I'm not sure how many owners there were. But just trying to keep it running. I know you're supposed to take the battery off in the winter if you don't use it a lot. Keep it on a tender. You're supposed to fog the spark plugs as well. Put some other, I don't know. It's getting complicated. But anyway, yeah, a lot to look forward to. Tomorrow, by the time you probably watch this, it'll be December. And it gets, you know that this month goes really fast up until Christmas. But it feels like this always so packed once it gets into December. I've got something going on like every single weekend, between a buddy's birthday and going out to eat and just trying to wrap up Christmas presents. But I've been using eBay. I'm going to make my mom a little scrapbook, I think. On top of that, little things. I feel like Christmas gift giving is about not so much like big to-dos, but little things that people may have mentioned, or stuff that's like heartfelt, maybe putting something in a frame for someone, from like printing out a picture. I'm going to send my grandma like a little picture book, things like that, like sentimental stuff, especially for me. As you get older, you realize it's not about like getting an Xbox or things like that, things I cared about when I was 14, but I'm more than twice that age now. So it's going to be fun. Lots to look forward to. As I said, Advent began over this past weekend, if you go to church or not, if you're Catholic, Christian. So it's about a time of just reflecting. And I think just one takeaway I have is following your path and seeing where God, if you're religious, or the universe, for people who just think that, believe that there's power out there, just following your path. And I think that's something I needed to learn, was just as life goes on, you got to follow your path, what is intended for you, your own personal journey. Oops, sorry, just kicked the tripod. I feel like that's a good omen, speaking about our journey. To end this episode, let me know what you think. Give it a like, drop a comment. I read every single one. Love talking to people throughout the week. Ciao. Talk to you soon.